Hey guys, Thumbs this is aka Mustache Chom, and I'm here to review the movie Jungle Cruise. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon page. There'll be the second link in the description, and also consider subscribing if, again, you end up enjoying the review. And shilling will be re-announced at the end of the review. Alrighty then, the shilling out of the way, let's get into Jungle Cruise. So apparently Jungle Cruise is based off of a tour thing and one of the Disney rides, so very Pirates of the Caribbean. For those of you who do not know, or don't remember perhaps, Pirates of the Caribbean was based off of a Disney ride and was a very popular movie back a bit ago. So it spun off into a whole bunch of other sequels, and then the sequels kind of got a little bit worse and worse, and then it kind of just started falling apart. But in its inception, the original Pirates was really good. And there are definitely other elements in some of the other movies. I'd probably argue up until the third one, I want to say, from what I can remember of them, that had definitely had some interesting either segments or moments within them. Despite their dip in quality in each one over time. Nonetheless, this is a separate theme park-based movie named Jungle Cruise. So, let's get into it. So the movie starts off with some narration about this whole thing that they got going on with these tiers and this legend that they got going on, very mythical and very, I want to say very almost D&D-esque. And there are some haunting images of some certain people being taken away by the forest, and we don't really understand what's going on, at least initially. And we see that this movie has a set piece, in the 1916 era. So, I think the writing of this movie is very, how you say, current Disney forward progressive, and it's well hidden behind its current date within the movie itself being 1916. Of course, back then, certain things were actually worse than they are now. Even back then, this is going back to when, the movie actually makes it very crystal clear that men were very clearly sexist, and homophobia is a thing because one of the characters in this movie is gay. Not so surprising for a Disney movie to do that, but not have a couple that kisses, because they already get in trouble for that enough and have to block it off of other countries, because Disney be Disney, and they're not, outside of the Owl House, I don't think I've seen a forward, out-of-country movie keep its integrity, if that makes any sense, within that thing. But we'll get a little bit more into that later on, anyway. So, speaking of the good old sexism, we begin our little movie with Lily, our main character, moving about as her brother, McGregor, is giving a speech, and she was sort of guiding him through cards, and his little expedition, I believe they were trying to get funded for, something along those lines, was declined. Meanwhile, she goes and does some stealthing, but as she takes the item, they get found out by very clear villain, Prince Joaquin, I believe it's pronounced. He takes down the men after she kerfuffles her way through the library and getting the item that she needs to progress in this thing that she wants. She wants to find this cure-all, a flower. based off of the speech that they gave at the beginning. And as they sort of make their escape, we cut to a skipper played by Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock. In this movie, his name is Frank. And it would seem that Frank here runs the little boat, and his little tour guide is has a bunch of pre-things made that he insists on having happen, whether it be fake hippopotamuses or a tribe out there that he's in line with, that he is, hired on to help him make sure that the people on the boat get the authentic jungle experience back then. So he gets paid for these fake problems. And yeah, as we are going back with Lily, she's making her way towards this area. So she's looking for a boat. He runs the boat, so we already know where this is going. However, Frank owes this rich guy, Nilo, I believe his name is, some money. So he has his own issues to deal with. But through the process of some more chicanery, at first she thinks that Frank is the boat owner, even though his boat was just taken from him. And they make a lucrative deal with each other. Him noticing her necklace, he drops the price that he intended to go for, once believing in certain things later on. We'll go back to him more later on in the movie. However, a leopard attacks the tavern they are in, and he gracefully attacks it. And as we learn later, or right after, the leopard is in on the plan. It's a part of his ruse to get these people all hyped up for him. So, she gets the help. He gets to obsess over her necklace. Things are looking a little rocky. Pun intended, I guess. So she gets on the boat, and we learn that she does have a fear of water, which, at least they gave her a weakness, something to progress and get better at in the movie. Instead of being absolutely perfect, which she almost is, she's almost very quintessential, typical current Disney bad. But she does have a weakness, so I have to give Disney applause on that one, because, yeah, it doesn't typically take a lot to give a character a weakness, but for Disney, whew, wow, talk about a shocker. For Disney to give a woman a weakness, that's a pretty big deal, considering that, their most recent Disney movies, Cruella, Mulan, perfect, nothing wrong with Mulan. She's perfect the way she is. She doesn't have any flaws. The perfect child, knows the martial arts, has the chi, has this inherent gift. Even Cruella, she was misunderstood, but she was still really good and got everything her way, with the exception of her mom dying, which is out of her control. But still, outside of that, she still had it pretty good in the opposing of what we understand Cruella to be. So it's, again, in standards of writing, it's not a lot, but again, for Disney, I have to give props are due. They gave her a weakness. So thank you, Disney, for finally doing that, because I don't think a lot of people would give that any credit normally. So I want to make sure I'm really hammering in how many times Disney, especially recently, has made a woman character pretty much perfect. The Mary Sue, if you will. So, enough of that rant. Let's move on. So, as they are prepping out on the boat, their little kerfuffle of Joachim, I'll just pronounce it that way, attacks once more with some of his henchmen, and she gets stuffed in a birdcage briefly, and Frank goes to help out briefly, and they sort of help each other out. Very early, what's the movie I'm thinking of? The Mummy, kind of silly fighting, except probably even sillier in this. Up to the point where they get completely absurd, where the opposing enemies fire a torpedo, the boat goes up into a building like a ramp, and then as the torpedo passes them, and they are able to avoid getting blown up to smithereens. So yeah, a little bit of obvious plot armor going on, or plot boat, I guess. As they proceed to try to avoid these obvious bad guys doing really obvious bad guy things. So they draw further and further from the bad guys who are in a submarine. They get left behind at the docks. And as they are, falling behind, more things will happen. So as we cut back to our duo of Frank and Lily, they argue about which direction to go. She insists on going on the more rampinous part, because it is simply faster. And they probably wasted a little bit more time, but whatever. We'll, Anyway, he gets some grub, they enjoy some piranha, things are looking neat. She's drawing and he's playing guitar. They both share in each other's likes and dislikes, or like what they could improve upon with each other. I guess this is their very first hint of romance, because that's where this movie's headed. I will say that the romance in this isn't peak anything, it's just very, very low standard in writing, type of writing in terms of romance, so, very early Disney, I guess, in that regard. So anyways, even the leopard is revealed at this point to the two of them. Earlier it was very secretive, but now the secret is out, with McGregor releasing it and it showing that its true nature is very kind. Anyway, bad guys are continuing to make their location as they're trying to catch up, and they make a deal with some snakes. This is where the movie gets a little bit more mysticism in it. Again, very attuned to Pirates of the Caribbean, where you get that very famous scene where it's like, oh, you thought you were, dreaming or something, but now you're part of the fairy tale, or something. I forget what the line was exactly, word for word. It's when the lady, I can't remember her name, but I remember Barbossa. When they get out and when she faces Barbossa, and it's like, you're in a dream, or you're in a fairy tale, you're living in one, something like that. If you can remind me, let me know in the comments. I know someone knows exactly what I'm talking about when I'm referring to pirates. Anyway, back to this movie. Point being, things are getting a little bit more mystic up in this bitch. Anyway, so after the deal is made, the other two get some to face the consequences of her actions and face off against the big waves and nearly avoid the falling over of the big drop by having enough power to subvert to the other side where it's calmer. But the leopard gets drunk. Oh no. So as they avoid falling to their utter doom, they take a little break where Frank and McGregor take a very brief break. This is where the two of them talk about some stuff. Frank is questioning about Lily, and he's saying like, Lily, you know, looks after me, and, you know, I had these quote-unquote interest, fallen upon me, but I was never adequate enough because of my true interest, aka, a more, I suppose, as subtle as Disney could be, like, hey, this character is gay, again, without actually having to have a romantic partner in the movie for this character be there. So yes, there is that point in the movie, and this is to establish two things, that, and again, for Frank to learn a little bit more about Lily, and for Lily to learn that, surprise, surprise, Frank has even more secrets that he's been hiding out on, as she finds more maps, so she knows that he's been looking for the same thing that she is currently looking for. However, when the three of them get back on the boat, they get attacked by 3 tranks and are knocked out. So they're brought into that tribe we saw at the earlier part of the movie, and the tribe obviously is with him, and he gets pissed after the fact. And they learn that they have 2 days before their little adventure has to take some time before it resets, or whatever the myth is. Point is, there is a ticking clock, apparently. So, she's upset at this point in the movie. She's like, here, have your money, get out, I'm done. However, just as she's done, the village gets under attack by the monsters that we saw get hired on. And these monsters appear to be the Kagisadors we saw at the very earlier part of the movie, the ones we saw get knocked out, and we see them attacking again, brought back to life. Again, very Pirates of the Caribbean of when you see the guys turning into the skeleton figures, except that looked way cooler. Even though I think they're both CGI, I think there are parts of that might actually be costume, I'm not sure. Depending on which one you're talking about. I'm not sure how much of Barbossa was CGI, probably all of him, I don't know. Anyway, point being, so as they're being attacked, Frank, among this attack, is the one who gets immediately stabbed, and you're like, oh no, he gets stabbed, and he falls to a very clear death. So she freaks out seeing this, and as they're attacking the 4 others, bad guys that are very mystical in nature and have 4 different things about them, like one's like a tree guy, one's a very clear snake guy, one's a bee guy, and one's like a... I don't remember the 4th one. Anyways, we see that Lily finds Frank's body, but he's alive somehow. So, at this point, Frank reveals that he's 400 years old. In fact, he used to run with these bad guys, but the bad guys back in the day weren't, well, according probably from their perspective, weren't as bad as they were trying to get the cure for someone else. But they took bad actions to get the thing that they wanted. They attacked this other village that had the thing that they're after currently, the flower. We see this through these flashbacks that go back to 1556, where we see their group being taken by the Force way back then, and he got trapped too. Got trapped to live this life as one of the people in the tribe did a curse on the 4 or 5 of them in there. So as they make their way, continuing on their little escapade, trying to avoid being taken, they just decide that they're gonna pull out the rest of this little excavation because they're already getting closer. They get to the tribe, or sorry, the snakehead, where they saw the maps leading to. McGregor was left behind because he got injured at this point when he was in there, and he gets ended up picking up by the bad guys, so the bad guys are able to follow them there. So now everyone's pretty much here at the same location, where a lot of them have to figure out the current sinking of the water, which is primarily the two of them at first, sharing air, nearly trying to avoid sinking while the water is sinking as she pulled the lever down, and that somehow lowered the water. I guess it opened some aqueducts I didn't see, but whatever. But the bad guys are already there. So they move on with the bad guys having them captured very Indiana Jones at this point, where the bad guys are, leading on the good guys to do the puzzles. So that's what's happening at this point. Lily and Frank devise together a plan where she agrees to their conditions about the flower, how she will have one, and she'll even be willing to kill him, Frank. And indeed, after solving the next puzzle about this whole thing that they got and tearing it inside and finding a little smaller gem, she shoots Frank down with some bullets because she knows, and only she and McGregor know that he can survive that. But the others think that he's dead. Convenient. So anyways, after that, he goes on to fight some guys on the boat. Lily goes on ahead when they are discovered, so it doesn't last that long of a plan of, breaking free from this little attack. But she goes after the flower, and she manages to get it, but she drops it as Prince Joachim and his henchmen, the dead ones, or undead ones, I should say, all go on the attack as well. But Frank ends up getting the flower dropped as she sort of dropped it to him, sort of. The other undead baddies are more interested in the flower, so they go after him specifically on the boat. However, he reveals that inside the little cloth that he had the entire time was not the actual flower, and instead had given it to Lily. So now the 4 or 5 of them, the undead, plus Frank, who is also, I guess, technically undead with the context that he looks the most living among them, all crash into the boat wall. The boat crashes into the wall, and they all get grabbed by the forest when that all goes down, and they all get pulled back in and turned to stone. So with her still with the flower in hand, decides that she's gonna offer it to him, which enables him to turn into a living person that's going to pass away at some point. And that is when they embrace in their romance fully, kiss and all that good stuff. Um, and after the fact, you see another flower bloom, even though it was like the moon was heading away, but it somehow gave life to a new flower, even though they are all dying, but whatever. Uh, so they get that flower too, and they go back to London, where McGregor goes to the men at the very beginning of the movie we saw, reject. He's the one who does the rejecting this time, as the people are more fascinated by his tale this time, but he's like, nah, you guys are fucking lame. And the women are like, hoo 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 hoo! And meanwhile, Frank learns to drive a motor vehicle from Lily. And that is where the movie Jungle Cruise comes to its end. And, I think this movie is pretty good. I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. There is some slight, I wouldn't say, character in terms of the whole romance thing. It feels very, again, excuse to early Disney, very cookie cutter, very it doesn't even feel like it, but it is sort of writing. That always brings it down a little bit. The whole aspect of being undead, I don't know if I remove points from that necessarily, because I really do enjoy Pirates of the Caribbean. Again, a constant comparison that I think that people are going to make on the basis that, again, that both movies are based off of a ride, or were based off of a ride. I do enjoy the whole pirate aspect. In it of itself, the whole being a pirate thing does have a more intrinsical sort of appeal to me, and probably a larger sum of people over a cruise, a jungle cruise. So, there's always that. So yeah, I think I would stick with a 6 out of 10. And if you ended up enjoying this review, then again, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One to head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated, and until next time everyone, bye bye!